My family said I would never succeed. Now they depend completely on me. They laughed when I said I wanted to build my own company. They rolled their eyes when I turned down safe jobs. No savings, no support, just a dream and a second-hand laptop. They said I was lost, that I'd come crawling back. But I didn't. I climbed quietly, steadily. And now, the same people who once doubted me depend on me. I'm Julia, and this isn't about revenge. It's about becoming. Have you ever been underestimated, only to rise higher than they ever imagined? Tell me in the comments. And stay with me because it all started the day they stopped believing. Part 1. The label they gave me. They said I lacked focus, that I couldn't hold a job for more than 6 months, that I was always jumping from one random idea to the next: photography, blogging, design, social media. She doesn't finish anything, they'd whisper, sometimes not even bothering to whisper. I heard them loud and clear. Every single time. My name is Julia. And for most of my adult life, I was known in my family as the one who would never succeed. At Sunday dinners, I was the topic they skipped over quickly. During holidays, my updates were the shortest, the least celebrated. No fancy degrees. No fiancé. No kids. I was the odd one out. The question mark. The unfinished chapter they all secretly thought would end in failure. And the worst part? They weren't cruel about it. Just dismissive. Shrugging. Writing me off with polite silence. But here's what they didn't see. Behind all the messy job hopping was a woman desperately learning how to build something of her own. I wasn't lost. I was exploring. Testing. Learning. I was working late nights at a local coffee shop, saving every dollar I could. I used free Wi-Fi to take online courses in digital marketing, branding, copywriting. My tools? A cracked second-hand laptop, a spiral notebook full of scribbles, and a stubborn belief that I could turn this into something real. They didn't see the nights I stayed up until 3 a.m. designing logos for local bakeries who paid me in cupcakes. Or the weekends I spent filming tutorials with a borrowed camera, just to post something online that might land me my first freelance gig. To them, I was still the girl with the side hobbies. But to me, I was planting seeds. Quietly. Consistently. Have you ever been the one no one took seriously? The one they smiled at kindly, but never included in the real conversation? If you have, I see you. Drop a like below if you've ever been underestimated but kept going anyway. It hurt, of course it did. Not because I needed their validation, but because I wanted their belief. I wanted someone to say, hey, maybe she's onto something. But I never got that. So I learned to become my own cheerleader. I started writing affirmations on sticky notes and taping them to my bathroom mirror. Things like, you are building something. Their doubts don't define you. Keep going. Quiet is powerful too. One moment I'll never forget? It was my cousin's graduation party. She had just gotten her master's degree. There were balloons, banners, speeches. I stood in the back, sipping a warm soda, and heard my aunt say, now that's how you build a future. I smiled, because by that point, I had 3 clients of my own. I was managing their content, running their ads, even helping them build e-commerce sites. I was earning more than I ever had. But no one knew. And I kept it that way. Because sometimes, when people are so committed to misunderstanding you, it's better to let your work speak in silence. I wasn't building my career for applause. I was building it for freedom. For independence. For the version of me that had been hiding under their labels for years, waiting to breathe. And then it happened. One afternoon, while working from my tiny apartment's kitchen table, I received an email from a well-known brand asking if I'd consult on their rebranding campaign. I froze. Reread it 5 times. Then cried. Not because it meant money, but because it meant I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wasting time. Someone out there saw value in what I'd built from scratch. That night, I walked past my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman I'd become. Tired, yes, but glowing. Confident. Capable. Independent. Have you ever had a moment like that? When something small, an email, a win, a message made all the quiet, uphill work feel worth it. I want to hear about it. Share your win below, no matter how small. Your story matters here. I didn't need a big, dramatic turning point. I just needed space. Space to grow, to fail, to try again. And while my family kept seeing me as the one who would never make it, I kept building quietly, layer by layer. And what they didn't know was that the very thing they mocked me for, my restlessness, my non-traditional path, was about to become the reason they would one day rely on me. But I'll get to that. Because next came the moment their phones started ringing, and they had no one else to call but me. So stick with me. Let's talk about what happens when the disappointment becomes the only one they depend on. Part 2. The breakthrough they never saw coming. It didn't start with a grand opening or a press release. It started with one email. One woman, just like me, trying to build something from nothing. She'd seen a comment I left in a freelancer forum. "Do you do websites?" she asked. I said yes, then spent the next 48 hours learning how. That project paid $300. And it felt like a million. Because for the first time, someone believed in what I could do. Not because of a resume. Not because of family reputation. Just me. That one client led to 2. Then 5. Then 10. No ads. No business cards. Just word of mouth and a lot of late nights. I turned my tiny kitchen table into command central. Juggling invoices, Zoom calls, content calendars, and dinner all in the same space. And you know what? I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was ashamed, but because it felt sacred. Like this tiny thing I was building deserved protection while it grew roots. Have you ever had a moment like that? Something you built in silence. Not for applause, but for peace? Tell me in the comments. I really want to hear your story. While the rest of the world posted every win, I stayed quiet. I wasn't chasing likes. I was chasing freedom. I taught myself SEO on weekends. Learned branding while folding laundry. Took copywriting courses between freelance gigs. I didn't party. I didn't post. I didn't need anyone to validate me anymore. My momentum was enough. And slowly that momentum turned into a machine. I specialized in helping women-led businesses scale online. Social media strategy. Email funnels. Digital storefronts. I knew what it was like to start from zero. And so did my clients. We grew together. I registered an LLC. Hired a virtual assistant. Then another contractor. Then I upgraded from my kitchen table to a corner desk in a co-working space with a window. My first office. I cried the day I signed the lease. Just like I cried over that $300 invoice. Because no matter how far I came, I never stopped being that girl everyone underestimated. At family gatherings, not much changed. "So still doing that internet thing?" they'd ask. "When are you gonna get a real job?" I used to bristle. But not anymore. I just smiled. Because I knew something they didn't. Quiet growth is still growth. They couldn't see the 2 a.m. work sessions, the client testimonials, the late-night breakthroughs when code finally worked or a funnel finally converted. But I did. And that was enough. Still, there was a part of me that wondered, what would it take for them to finally see me differently? And then just when I stopped needing their approval, my phone buzzed. It was a name I hadn't seen pop up in a long time. My cousin. The one who once told me I was wasting my life chasing pixels. "Hey," the message said. "I heard you run some kind of marketing business now. Do you have time for a quick call? I'm launching something and could really use help." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I didn't know how to respond, but because I realized in that moment the shift had already happened. I wasn't the joke anymore. I was the solution. And you know what surprised me most? I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel the urge to say "I told you so." I just felt calm. Because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about finally living in a space where their validation no longer held value. Have you ever had someone who once doubted you suddenly come back into your life? Asking for your help? How did you respond? Did you say yes? Did you walk away? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you navigated that moment. Because that call? It wasn't the last. It was the first of many. But the next one? That one changed everything. So stay with me because in part 3, we'll talk about what happens when the people who never believed in you suddenly need you to lead the way. And trust me, you'll want to hear what happened when the biggest favor of all came from the one voice I never thought I'd hear again. Yes, even that one. Part 3. When the calls started coming. They say success is the best revenge. But honestly, I wasn't looking for revenge. I was just busy answering emails. It started quietly. A message here. A ping there. The first was my cousin. The same one who used to roll her eyes whenever I talked about digital branding like it was some made-up career path. She messaged me with a humble, "Hey, do you do websites for small businesses?" I smiled. Not out of smugness but out of something deeper. Like the universe was gently nodding, reminding me that the seeds I planted were now blooming in places they couldn't ignore. I told her yes. Sent her my intake form. Booked her for a Tuesday consult. Then came my uncle. The one who once joked that I should stop playing on the computer and get a real job. Now, he needed help setting up an online booking system for his plumbing company. His son, my cousin, had been managing things, but it wasn't working. They were falling behind, losing clients. And here I was, with the toolkit they needed. I didn't hesitate. I treated them like I did every client professionally, warmly, with boundaries. I sent them my rate sheet, offered a free 20-minute discovery call. And when my uncle paused at the price, I said gently, "I understand if it's not the right time, but this is what my work is worth now." And that was a big moment for me, because not long ago I would have discounted myself, eager to prove I belonged. But not anymore. The biggest surprise, though? My mother. She had never fully understood what I did for a living. At family dinners, she'd still ask if I was still working on that computer stuff. But that week, she called with a tremble in her voice. The flower shop she co-managed with her friend was struggling. Their online presence was non-existent. Deliveries were being missed. Reviews were slipping. She didn't ask for a favor, she asked for help. And I said yes. Not because she finally believed in me, but because I finally believed in myself. Working with my mom was strange at first. She tried not to micromanage, and I tried not to flinch every time she doubted a strategy. But slowly, she began to trust the process. She started using words like analytics and engagement. I watched her confidence grow as her sales did too. One afternoon, after launching her shop's new site, she looked at me and said, "I didn't know you were this good." I looked at her softly and replied, "I always was. You just weren't looking." Have you ever had someone who doubted you sincerely, deeply come back and ask for your help? Did it feel validating, bittersweet, maybe even healing? I'd really love to know. Share your story in the comments. Because these moments are more common than we think, and they deserve to be seen. Now here's the part one didn't expect. After months of steady work, growing referrals, and helping both strangers and family thrive, I got an email from a local women's business network. They were hosting a panel on rising through setbacks and turning rejection into resilience. And they wanted me, Julia, to be one of the speakers. I nearly dropped my coffee. The girl who once cried on her bathroom floor, wondering if she'd ever be enough, was now being asked to share her journey on a stage. And guess who was in the front row the night of the event? My cousin. My uncle. Even my mom. They clapped. They smiled. My mom wiped a tear. But more than any applause, what filled me up was this. I had built something real. Quietly. Consistently. Without needing to prove anything until the results spoke for themselves. That evening, as the lights dimmed and I packed up my notes, my uncle pulled me aside. "You've really made something out of yourself," he said. "We're proud of you." And for the first time, I didn't need that approval. But I received it anyway with grace. Because growth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply sits in the back row, smiles, and lets the work speak. And just when I thought the story had come full circle, life handed me one more twist. I was asked to headline a new mentorship event. For young women starting out. The kind I used to be. But this time my entire family showed up. Not to doubt me, but to cheer me on. Part 4. The day they finally saw me. I still remember the moment I realized things had changed. It wasn't a loud announcement or an Instagram post. It started with a message. "We'd love for you to speak at Women in Business Summit. Please join us." I stared at the screen, disbelief swirling with gratitude. My hands shook, not out of nerves, but because here was an opportunity that once felt impossible for the girl who never quite fit in. When the day arrived, I stood backstage, listening to applause for the woman before me. My phone buzzed. A photo popped up. My mother, father, cousin, and uncle front row. Smiles so wide I could almost see the surprise in their eyes. They hadn't been invited by me. They'd been invited by the organizers who had seen something in me first. The irony was delicious. The doors opened. I walked onto the stage, confident step, light in my chest, and the room went quiet. In the first 10 seconds, I introduced myself. I'm Julia. Once the family's lost cause. Now I'm here to share how rejection became my roadmap to success. What came after those opening words was honest, heartfelt, and real. I spoke about times I spent drawing up logos on paper napkins, learning SEO at a rented desk, pitching clients who said no more than they said yes. I talked about being ignored at holiday dinners, of overheard remarks about how I needed a real plan. And I shared how that doubt became fuel, not because I wanted to prove everyone wrong, but because I needed to prove to myself that I was worth believing in. I could feel eyes shift in the audience when I brought my family into the story. Their faces, once so familiar, now framed by expressions of surprise and perhaps a hint of regret. I spoke about my first breakout client, a woman-led e-commerce brand whose monthly revenue doubled under my digital marketing plan. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just freelancing, I was building a business that mattered. After I finished, the applause echoed in the auditorium. But more powerful than that was the hush that settled when I walked off stage, exchanging glances with my family members. My dad stepped up first. I expected something small, and he delivered something big. He wrapped me in a hug and whispered, "You really did build all this." It wasn't a demand for explanation. It wasn't a comparison to his own path, it was acceptance. Quiet but strong. My mom hugged me next, tears in her eyes. "I didn't understand before," she said, "but I do now." She didn't need to say more. Her embrace said it all. Can you recall a moment where your parents, siblings, or friends looked at you differently because you became the person they never saw coming? I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment below, I read every one. That evening, we left the summit together. They walked me to my car, asked genuine questions about my next projects, offered support. For so many years, I had carried their doubt. Now I carried their curiosity and belief. When I got home, I collapsed on my couch. No gala, no big celebration, just a quiet moment to reflect. I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where my worth didn't depend on their validation. I had already written my story, those early years filled with effort, and resilience mattered more than any nod of approval. Because success isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the soft glow of a lamp at midnight as you work. What does success look like to you when no one's watching but you? I'd love to know. Share your version in the comments below. They said I would never succeed, and for a while, I believed them. But here I am, not in spite of their doubt, but because of it. Their silence pushed me to listen to my own voice. Their dismissal gave me room to build something real. This isn't a victory lap, it's a moment of peace. If you've ever found strength in the spaces they left empty, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below, share this video with someone who needs it, and don't forget to like and subscribe to NA Family Story for more powerful stories that turn pain into purpose.